I'm Brian Duke, athletic trainer and strength coach at Hughesville High School in Central Pennsylvania. And today we're going to go over some of UPMC Sports Medicine's ACL injury prevention recommendations.
I'm Jerry Schreck, the head strength coach at Bucknell University, and we're really thankful that UMPC is putting out some information, some starting information to get out about talking about ACLs in the introduction. And today, Brian Duke and myself, we're going to talk about the actual exercises and implementation of the program that they're putting out.
So today's discussion will focus mostly on improving muscular strength. This does not happen within a vacuum. The other recommendations made by UPMC are year-round training program. So each one of these components should be part of a year-round training plan. Always recommend a proper warm-up prior to competition or exercise. And practicing landing and change of direction drills to improve our ability to maintain positions as we're going through those motions. This will also help increase our agility. And finally, again, today we'll talk mostly on improving muscular strength.
So let me briefly go over a little something here. They did discuss about practice landing and changing directions. This is very important if we want to really break down the movement patterns of an athlete and the way they transition their weight. So let's just talk real briefly about the practice landing. They're very easy. Stand on something, usually like a plyo box. And I will usually start our athletes off at about 12 inches, maybe 18 inches, and build up to 24 or 30 inches from there. But we'll just basically have the athlete step off the box. When they land, have them land toes, the heels, sit down in. I always cue our athletes to squeeze their glute and their quads and get those muscles to activate as they sit into that position on the landing. Knees should be over the shoelaces, not out past our toes. Again, come down, toes, the heels, squeeze, and stick that landing and reassess your body position with your knees and your feet. Okay, so we're going to have Duke real quick. He's going to demonstrate one of those landing depth jumps that we just talked about. So he's going to step off. You're going to see him land and stick that landing. Go ahead, Duke. Stick. You notice he landed toes first to his heels, sat down into it, squeezed the proper muscles between the quads and the glutes. His knees are tracking directly over his shoelaces and toes. And if you can see, his knees didn't do this valgus stress, which is stated in the article. He kept them in this line. This is the proper position. You want to land in this position with your knees just over your shoelaces and not letting the knees buckle in. Okay, the first strengthening exercise that they're listing is a quad set. There are multiple ways to do the quad set, so let's just talk about a couple real quick, real brief. Basically, a quad set is nothing more than contracting the four muscles here that make up your quad, okay? I like to instruct it by pulling the toe back, locking the leg, tightening these up, and making sure that all this whole area of your quad is engaged. You can do this with a straight leg. You can also do this with a slight bend, or a slight external rotation from your shoulder or your hip joint. Another variation of this would be putting a ball, take a soccer ball, medicine ball, and doing the same thing, pull the toe back. Now I would have my athletes lay down. I don't have something to lay down here, but I would have a squeeze, and again, I would say keep the toe pulled back and get good activation here of the quad. Hold it anywhere from 3 to 10 seconds, and then release the tension. I say break the knee and then lock it out and start again. That would be a quad set.
All right, the next recommended exercises are straight leg raise and backward straight leg raise. Both of these can be done either just against gravity or adding resistance with the cuff weight. For the straight leg raise, lay down on your back, and just like Coach Schreck said with the quad set, we want to pull the toe back, contract the quad as hard as possible, and then just lift up in the air, come back down. Again, these can be held for 3 to 10 seconds. Sometimes we'll bend the opposite knee, set the quad hard, lift, pause, down, and relax the quad. Contract, lift, down, and relax. And next up is the backward leg raise. We'll execute this one laying on our stomachs, and we want the same pattern of contraction that we had for the straight leg raise. So as I lay on my stomach, I want to pull the toe back, contract the quad, squeeze as hard as I can, and then I'm using glute to lift up, pause, down, and relax. Try and brace your abs, flex your trunk so that we're making that movement happen at the hip and not at the low back. Contract, lift, pause, down, and relax.
Okay, the fourth exercise is hip abduction. Okay, abduction, that means going away from the body for your hip, which would be your smaller muscles in the glute medius and stuff. So the simple basic one is laying on your side. Again, pull the toe back, raise. I usually have my athletes go to about a 45-degree angle, make sure there's a good contraction here, and back down. This is the easiest way to do it. As Duke talked about in the previous video, you could put an ankle weight on there for resistance. You can also do manual resistance right here as well. Another variation of this could be by taking a simple loop, band, tubing. They have a lot of different products on the market. Put your legs in it, put it up here so it's just above your knees. Bend your knees so you have a 90-degree angle in your knee, and then you're just going to open that up. They call this a clamshell against resistance. You can bring it up, you can hold and squeeze, get good contraction right here for a few seconds, and then drop it down. Bring it up, hold, squeeze, and drop it back down. There's other variations. You could do this in a standing position. If you had an ankle attachment and a cable machine, or even with a band, you can do it standing, and then push the leg away and bring it back in towards the midline of the body. Push away. Boom. Simple ways to work the abduction of the hip.
So the next exercise are squats. With all the variations and possibilities for that squat pattern, it's important that we get that pattern done well. So our basic cues, we want to take a good normal athletic stance. Our knees should be stacked right over top of the ankles, and then we are going to sit down and back to get into that squat position. A great way to get some feedback on whether this is a good movement pattern is to do this facing the wall. We have our toes about 4 inches away from the wall. Our hands go behind our head, and we have that feet about shoulder width apart. I initiate the squat by taking the hips down and back, come down to parallel, and squat back up. Spread the floor on the way down, coming up, getting a good hard squeeze at the top.
Building off of what Duke did, we start with the wall, get our form and technique done. It's a great way to start training and teaching for the squat. After that, the next progression typically would be a goblet squat. Where we take the weight. Here I have a kettlebell. This guy is looking down with a dumbbell. In a goblet squat, you can hold the weight close to the chest like this, so it's not out far away. Get in this position. Get in your good squat position. As we said, bend the knees and hips slightly. Lead with the hips. Push the knees out. Transfer the weight to the heels, and then push away with the weight on your heel. As you're coming up. Okay, that's a simple goblet squat. It's a great place to start, and then a good progression into where you start with your barbells for your back and front squats.
So a reason why the facing the wall squat is a great check on the movement pattern is we don't want our nose or our knees to hit that wall. So again, 4 inches away, hands back behind the head, down into the squat, and back up. Our nose and our knees do not hit the wall when we're in our squat pattern.
And then from the side for the goblet squat, make sure you're in good form. Again, knees and hips bent. You start with the hips. Start by pushing the hips back as you go down into your squat. Keep that weight nice and close. Drive away. As you drive away, you're pushing through the heels and you're pushing out through the knees, all out, pushing the knees out as you come up.
Okay, so next up on our list is wall sits. All we need for this exercise is a wall, and we want to take our natural squat stance, feet about shoulder width, keeping the knees stacked over top of the shoelaces. We're going to slide down the wall, flash to parallel, and we can just hold for time here. Now I'm also thinking about squeezing everything in my legs, so I'm getting good co-contraction of the quads and the hamstrings, pushing through the heels, squeezing the glutes, and maintaining this position for time. A variation we can do to add in some of the adductors is to take a med ball, put between the knees with a slightly more narrow stance, and now we can also get that contraction of the adductor in with the rest of our wall sit exercise.
Okay, moving along on our list. Reverse lunges are next. Okay, so we can do this in multiple ways. I always recommend if you're working with a younger population, you start with just body weight, work on form and technique. Stay in good posture upright. You'll take the step back. When you take the step back, have the athlete reach back as they step down into this lunge. Now I coach it so that we're at a 90-degree angle of the lead knee, and we're going to come up out of that lunge. I'm going to use the weight. I'm going to push the weight through my heel as I step up out of that lunge. Step down, step up out. That can be done by, you can hold a medicine ball for a weight like a goblet squat. You can hold dumbbells like this. You can even move to a barbell, which gets a little more advanced. This can be done held in an isometric hold down here, or it can come up, okay? We'll go to the side, 90 degrees, drive up, using the weight through the heel when you come up out of that lunge. That's important. Drive the weight through the heel as you come up out of the lunge, the lead heel. Okay, so working on bridges. They listed it as a short leg and a long leg bridge. So we're going to work on that. We're going to talk about how to set up for this. Whenever you're doing a bridge, sometimes it's also called a hip thrust. You want to take the athlete's arms, have them come down to their side, and this is how you measure where the feet go. Okay? This is a big question mark for a lot of people, how to place your feet. Get your hands, your feet, heels come right back to your fingertips. That's where you're going to start. Lay flat. You're going to squeeze by squeezing the glutes up into a straight line. So you have a straight line between your knee, your hip, and your shoulder, hip, and knee. Drop it back down. This would be considered the short bridge. The long bridge would be hit the legs are straight, and you're gonna squeeze the glutes as you raise it up off the ground. Now, I'm not a big fan of the long bridge in that position. I like to do it in a 120-degree angle in the knee, in here, and I'll do the same thing. I'll squeeze at a 190-degree angle, or 120-degree angle, sorry. In this position here, tight, and relax. At 120 degrees is the angle that an ACL typically tears at. So I want to be strong in that position, and sometimes I'll hold that into an isometric hold where we'll be 120 degrees, and we'll come up and we'll hold and squeeze for time, sometimes 15 seconds to 30 seconds.
All right, the last two items on our list are planks and side planks. So our traditional plank is to lay on your stomach, elbows stay right underneath of the shoulders, right? And we want a good straight line from our ear through our shoulder, through our hip, through our knee, right down to our ankle, and we can come up and hold for time. Again, we want good, firm contraction as I come up into this plank, good alignment of the spine. I'm contracting everything I can, and we can hold for time. All right, so the variations of the side plank that we use the most, one is just straight up on elbow underneath shoulder, again keeping good straight line and coming up from the foot, maintaining good brace and good alignment. I tend to utilize a side plank from the knee as much, where I want that good straight line, ear, shoulder, hip, knee, so I'm into that extension. I'm going to come up into that plank, and I'm going to hold the top leg up at about that 45. So I can work on glute med on both sides with the trunk remaining solid. So again, thanks for your time. This is a really great starting point, entry-level ACL prevention group of exercises. Again, we see it as part of a big picture.
Yeah, we'd really like to thank UPMC for putting this article out. At least it's introducing and getting people thinking about preventing knee injuries, particularly with the ACL. This would be a generalization. This is a good starting point. There's a lot more to expand on in preventing ACL tears that we can get into maybe possibly in another day or another time. But right now, this is where we want to start if you're just wanting to get started with preventing an ACL tear and trying to keep your athletes healthy.
And the beauty of this fundamental program is that it can be done virtually anywhere. This is your baseline with no specialized equipment or strength equipment. It can be done largely out on your athletic playing surface, so easily integrated into part of any youth sports practice, junior high, middle school, and right on up through it. I believe it has some benefits.